You're playing guitar now for years and years and years. You know all the scales and the arpeggios, but still, your solo doesn't really sound as cool as the one from your heroes? Well, let's find out in today's video 5 reasons why your solo probably suck. Alright, here we go. Hey Guitar Champion, what's going on? I'm Justin Hornbach, back from my practice cave, and welcome to today's video. One of my students from my coaching program has shown me a solo that he wrote, and he was asking me, oh goddammit, I think this solo sounds pretty boring, but why is it so? Theory-wise, he did everything correctly. He uses the right scales, the right arpeggios, blah blah blah, all all of this kind of stuff correctly. But still, somehow this solo had absolutely no spice in it. And I want to point out in today's video 5 things that we often forget when it comes to solo writing. We are doing with the example of the solo from my student. So first we are going to listen my version of playing this solo, and then I'm going to lead you step by step through those 5 chapters of today's video. And each chapter we're going to put another thing into his solo, which maybe makes it a little bit more interesting. Please keep in mind, if you like the end solo or not, that is your personal taste, but you will see and hear maybe things differently after watching this video. If you want to download all the tabs for the different chapters or the versions of that solo, then check the description box, there's a link where you can download the tabs. And if you want to not only transform your solo playing to the next level by watching this video, but also want to transform your picking, then check out the Then of Speed Picking, my picking online course, link is in the description box. And of course, subscribe, like and comment. Alright, I would say let's start with the original version of the solo, and then we are transforming it into 5 steps to a much better solo. Here we go. Reason number 1 is that you always start on the 1. You can clearly hear this typical beginner mistake in that solo, because every line and every bar is always starting on the 1. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like lick, and then lick, and then lick, and lick. Try to, for example, take a lick, take a pattern, a line, and not start it on the 1, simply start it on the 1 end, or on the 2. On the 2 end, or whatnot. The possibilities are endless here. You immediately create a more interesting line with a little bit more of tension and a little bit more spice in it. And the next cool thing is that you are playing over the bar. You are not starting on the 1 anymore and on the 4 and on the last note of the bar and then create the next line on the next one. No, as you can see in the tabs for this example, you can clearly see how lines are developing over the bar, over the line that separates bar 1 with bar 2 with bar 3, and so on and so on. And by shifting melodies and line through the pulse, they get a different feeling, a different emotion, if you want to say it like this, because you're articulating different notes now. You can clearly hear that in the last lick, the 16-note triplet licks now in the example, where I'm starting on the 1 end, and so the pattern, the articulation of that pattern is shifting, and it's not on the 1st note anymore, it's now on the 4th note of that pattern. By the sweeping section in bar number 5, I still start on the 1, but I separate each pattern by adding a little break, a little pause of an 8th note between each individual sequence. So we have a sequence, pause, sequence, pause. And therefore it gets a really cool rhythmical feeling. So play around with that fact that you can start lines and licks on different positions in your bar. Try to avoid always playing on the 1. Tip number 2 is you don't have any motifs in your playing. And I really like that when guitar players are taking little themes, little motifs and expanding and developing them through their solo. It is like a little story inside of a solo. And yes, I know, the more time you have on a solo, the more you can play with melodies. But even if you only have a few bars, you can still put on some motifs and some themes here and there. For example, here in bar number 2, I developed the melodic theme, the melodic motif that I created in the first example by shifting the first lick and half note behind. And then I take this little motif and expand it through bar number 2 and bar number 3. And this is something that I especially learned from bass players. Through the time in Jazz University, I had lessons from a really great bass teacher called Sascha Feldman, and he showed me how bass players are creating motifs and developing through their solos. So try to create a motif or theme out of 4 notes and then expand it and develop it through the scales, through rhythmical ideas and all those tools that you could make usage of to make your solo a little bit more interesting. Alright, this was tip number 2. Let's check out the example for tip number 2 and then we are moving on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is you don't have any blues in your solo, which is a really stupid phrase to be honest, but what I mean with that is that you only take advantage of techniques like speed picking, sweep picking, legato playing, tapping, all that kind of stuff, which is really awesome, really cool. But never underestimate on how much life you can put in your solo by taking advantage of techniques like bending, vibrato, slides, all those kind of more phrasing techniques here. Those are also techniques, you can practice them as well and you should use them in your solo. For example, I throw away the first complete lick, the first complete bar, because I thought, well, it has nothing to say. It's, a little bit boring, a little bit omnipresent, not so cool. And I replaced it by only one note which I bent to the root note, and therefore I created a dynamic effect right in the beginning, one note to build up my solo and to take the time for the listener of, okay, here's something coming now, okay, here's the solo, and you can instantly put a lot of energy and a lot of into your solo when you start, for example, with the bending. And then I tried to include a little bit more kind of phrasing ideas with the little melody lines in that solo, a little bit of half-tone bands, slides, vibrato, all that kind of stuff. So do not play a note like it is. Do not over-exaggerate with bending and vibrato as well. Definitely try to use it like a little spice, which makes something really mwah. But if it's too much, then it's a little bit bleh. I hope you get what I mean. But you will definitely hear how it can spice up the solo when we are including a little bit of that blues. So never underestimate the blues, always learn your blues. It's really important and helpful to make your solo a little bit more Alright, tip number 4 is you are always playing the same pattern. Especially in the last lick, where we have this typical 6-note phrase. With the power of math, you can create so much more interesting, especially when we have patterns of 6. You can go a little bit more vertically, horizontally. You can go into different patterns which are created out of the note of 6 or 3. Here, for example, I first did the 6-note pattern, then I go into something which I call the Pepsi lick, and then I go descending that Pepsi lick through the scale, then I do the Paul Gilbert lick, ascending, going up again, and then having a little bit more kind of a wave inside of that lick. Instead of only going, I go more like this. Makes it a little bit more interesting. Or for the sweeping, for example, I play with inversions, I play with 3-note sweeping, 5-note sweeping, more like this. You will hear it right now in the example. You can be so creative by adding this pattern and then going here and then ascending, descending, playing vertically, playing horizontally. It's so awesome. If you want to have a full library of patterns, then check out the Den of Speed Picking, because there I put all my knowledge and all the patterns that I love, like to use in my online course. Alright, let's check out this example. Alright, now let's move on to the last tip. Tip number 5 is... Hey Justin, can it be that you forgot to include reason number 5 and you're realizing it on the day where you're recording this video? You will hear tip number 5 in part 2 of this video. So if you don't want to miss part 2, then yeah, feel free to subscribe to this channel and share this video with all of your guitar friends. So I hope I'm going to see you in my next video. So far, cheers and stay progress. Bye. Oh mein Gott, ich habe den letzten Teil vergessen.